All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for joining us today to kick off our beauty track here at Glam Hive. Again, my name is Brian Underwood. I'm the beauty director of Oh the Oprah magazine and the director of beauty partnerships here at Glam Hive. And we are excited to have the next 40 minutes with a woman who really needs no introduction in terms of the beauty industry. This is a photographer, a CEO, a self-taught makeup artist, entrepreneur, all of the things, who self-taught herself how to do makeup, and after working for some of the biggest brands in the industry, saw an opportunity to create a brand that was different, a brand that was focused on products that were multi-purpose, and also a brand that was for all women, a brand that sort of championed diversity and inclusion before it became a trending hashtag. And so please, a warm welcome to the incredible Danessa Myricks. Danessa, thank you so much for being here.
Ew, oh my God, just listening to you, I just feel like turning around like, who is he talking about?
Well, that's always the most successful people. They're just like the humblest. And before we dive in with some questions for Danessa, I just wanted to run through a few quick housekeeping notes. First off, feel free to leave some questions for Danessa in the chat box. I'm hoping that we have some time at the end for a little Q&A with the audience. This session is being recorded, so you will have access to it after the conference is over. And big thanks again to one of our presenting sponsors, Mary Kay. So Danessa, let's get started.
I'm ready.
Can you tell us a little bit about what's the Danessa Myricks story? How did you get started in the beauty industry?
Well, it's a little crazy. I often tell people that I'm an accidental makeup artist and also an accidental photographer. I actually was working corporate. I found myself working with a publishing company, and I was the director of marketing at a publishing company who just happened to publish beauty magazines. It was more like ethnic hair magazines. They published like 6 or 7 magazines, and I worked with them for about 10 years. And the owner decided that he wanted to move on and do something else, things that he was passionate about. It was later in his life and he didn't want to do it anymore. And so he gave me like a 30-day heads up. Like, I'm a single mom with 2 kids. And at that time, my children were very young.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to just, cut it cold, but he was like, you got to find something else to do.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was interesting, I found myself at a place, and I know that there are probably so many people who can relate to this, when you're like one of the first in your family to maybe graduate college, or, my parents I grew up with very little means. My father was from the South, and he came to New York to build a better life for us. He actually worked for a company for 33 years that went out of business. And at the age of 60, he had to find his way again. And, he turned into entrepreneurship with very little education, with much of nothing. He was able to take care of 9 children, keep us in a home, send us to great school. So I found myself there. And at 30, just trying to reinvent myself. And I was like, he's always like, work corporate, you need a great job, great education to live, because, his experience was very different. But for me, I found myself like, up until that point, I was doing jobs that I felt that I needed to do, to provide, but it wasn't anything that I was passionate about. I didn't like jump out of bed in the morning. I was just doing stuff. And I just remember working and seeing when they had photo shoots, and I would see the makeup artists come in, and it was just a totally different energy. Like, I'm sitting in the corner in my beige with no makeup on, just some lip gloss, as corny as you ever want to be. And, they're coming in like excited. They look cool. They just, the freedom of it all just seems so sexy. And I was just like, I want that. So I think when it all happened.
Isn't set energy like the best energy?
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's intoxicating. Yeah. And I think somehow it kind of like created a fantasy for me of like an alternative life that I can have. And so I was devastated at that point because I was like, what am I going to do? And I barely wore makeup. I was clueless about makeup, but I was just so hungry for just something different, and also the freedom that I felt would come with it. And so I just decided, like, I'm a makeup artist, and there I was sitting there with no makeup, just saying I was a makeup artist. But I just kind of, I reached out to the photographers who used to shoot, and I was just like, please, my children, I use them as a carrot. My children, I need your help. And basically they allowed me to work for free for a while. So I temped a lot during the day, and, kind of got my skills up on the weekend. Sometimes I drove like 5 hours to other states to work with a photographer who would let me work. And it took about a year.
In the work. You put
Yeah. And then, about a year into it, one of the photographers gave me a chance on a job that he was working, and somehow I did well. And then it just started to build from there.
Yeah. So, you've worked for some pretty big brands, Kiss and Benefit in the beauty industry. And, then you sort of decided that something was missing, and you wanted to do a brand that would address that something that was missing. Can you tell us what that was? What was it that you thought was missing?
Yeah, and it's interesting, and I take nothing away from the experiences that I've had, but with any of the clients that I've worked with and any of the companies that I was employed by, because it was all part of my journey and figure out how I want to contribute. But what I noticed is that, two things. Sometimes, there are people who really want to speak to a community of people who don't really understand them, and don't engage them in a way where they can service them well. Yeah. And then there are other brands who create products they have a certain position in their mind about who buys makeup and why they buy it. And they target very strategically in that space. And, there's nothing wrong with that. When people start a business, they're entitled to do whatever they want and reach out to whoever they want to. But I just found that there are a lot of people who are missing. There were a lot of blanks that needed to be filled in. Like, I didn't even think that I was represented in the brands that I was supporting and working with. And these are all good people. It's nothing to say about the people. It's just like, I just felt that there was, other people that I wanted to touch, and different ways that I wanted to communicate beauty, and I don't think that someone's age or their race or their socioeconomic background or their gender should get in the way of somebody just having fun and experiencing makeup. Right. I feel like everyone should have access to efficacious products, high performing products, and it shouldn't be about price point. It shouldn't be about who or what your skin tone is. It should just be available for everyone. Right. And, I just wanted to tell that story. And I wanted, at every skin tone, at every age, for you to be able to find the thing that you've been looking for, and also, have it communicated to you in a way where you could understand and feel like you can be a part of the conversation.
Well, you mentioned efficacious, you mentioned performance, which I think your brand and your products have come to have a reputation for being, good performing products, efficacious products. But they were also some of the first products to be multi-use. And when your brand came around, that was a new concept, and not so much now, but then it was a really groundbreaking idea. You're also known for your formulations. Is it a challenge from a formulation standpoint to make those products that are also multi-use but very efficacious?
Yeah, it's so funny that you would say that, because, coming up in makeup, I didn't have tons of money. I couldn't buy tons of things. So I had to learn how to repurpose things, like use eyeliners as lipsticks, as cheek colors. Right. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if, I can create products that can do all of the things, but are supposed to be used in those places. So I think one of the challenges was, finding the pigments and finding the textures that perform well on every area of the face, that you could put it on the eye and it looks amazing, but you could also put it on your cheek and not look like a clown. It's going to be perfect. And then as a lip, it's going to wear all day. So finding that perfect balance was challenging, but it was like the fun of it all, because just imagine you could just have this one thing, you could throw it in your purse and it could do all the things you wanted it to do. And then that's what made it exciting for me.
Well,
And I enjoyed doing that.
yeah, and isn't that the best form of entrepreneurship, is having a problem and setting out to solve it, and I think
Sure.
that's what it's all about. And we were talking about this before the session officially started, about your presence at the makeup shows. And, I think your brand is an interesting brand because makeup artists love it, consumers love it. Do you see it as a professional brand or a consumer brand, a bit of both? And what do you see as the differences between those two sort of categories in makeup?
It's funny because let me answer by saying, I feel like it's both. Coming up in the makeup industry, there was always this separation. Like, you go to this store and you buy professional products and the packaging looks a little different. And then, you go to this store when you're shopping, with your mom, to buy makeup. But in my mind, I felt like it should all be the same thing. The thing that I noticed with professional brands is that there wasn't a lot of fuss and muss about the package. It was like, what's inside this thing is good and it's going to work and it's going to perform in every environment. And sometimes on the flip side, a consumer product is going to be more like, well, this is just going to give you a little shine, and then you need to add something else if you want this. And then it's like so many things that really, it's just too many things sometimes. So I was like, what if I can marry the worlds together? What if I can, give the performance that a pro needs, but at the same time, make it feel easy enough for the average person to experience and understand, and then have that same pro quality? Because I think everyone who wears makeup wants performance. It's not an either or, like we all want that thing. So just finding that balance kind of really was the challenge, because you put a lot of money and time and energy and research into the formula, and then maybe there's not so much for this like blingy package left over. So it's just trying to find that healthy balance, I think, is the biggest challenge. But I really do want the products to be for everyone. My mom is 75 and she uses the products. My daughter is 20. She uses the products. I'm right there in the middle. I recently turned 50 and I'm using them too. And that's how I wanted it to be. Like, everyone can be in there and feel good.
I'm sure you hear, I'm sure everyone has their favorite Danessa Myricks product, and I'm sure you hear from people about that. Are there a few that you think of that makeup artists just come to you and say, this is the one, I can't live without this one?
My God, people always ask me to choose between my children. It's the worst, but I would say there were two. One would be the foundation Vision Cream Cover. And I think it's unique in that it does everything. I used to carry like 5 or 6 different types of foundation in my kit. If somebody has really easy skin and this is for editorial, you use this. If it's a wedding and they have acne, you use this. And it was just like crazy and confusing. So that particular product does everything. It's like the one and done, like magical concentrate that does it all. And then the other is Color Fix. Like, that is like my baby. That is like the thing that was the hardest to create. And gave me the biggest hassle, but also the biggest rewards as well. We just recently won a Best in Beauty award, and I tell you, I cried on the floor for the longest because, it's the product that I always dreamed of as a makeup artist. That thing that kind of does it all, and those are usually the two products that people are like, these two things, must-haves in my kit.
For those who aren't familiar with the product that you just mentioned, can you just tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, so Color Fix is a unique pigment. It's a liquid cream pigment that does everything. You can use it on your eyes, lips, and cheeks. It's 24-hour, long wear, waterproof. It's your liner, it's your brow color, it's your eyeshadow, it's your cheek color, it's your lip color, it's your corrector, it's your concealer, it's your body paint. It literally is everything that you can think of. We sat down one time and we're like, how many ways you can use Color Fix? And we got almost up to 150. So it is that one thing that can do everything.
Yeah. So, it's been a crazy year. And I think one of the things that has really been a big part of this year is this sort of long overdue reckoning in regard to race relations in our country. I think the beauty industry has been talking this talk for a little bit, but what work do you think still needs to be done in terms of setting the beauty industry on the right road in terms of inclusivity in that way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. And for me, it's so much deeper than just employing more people of color
Yeah,
in your office or creating more shades, because uh, it's really about an understanding of who you're creating for and taking the time to ask the questions and discover and learn.
right.
Yeah, and it's also, I traveled all around the world creating products and working in labs. And quite honestly, it's very it's not representative on that end. So,
Mhm.
you can be a brand with the best intentions making your products in Italy or in France or whatever, but if the people who are developing the products don't understand like what it is to put that formula on a deeper skin tone, or a different texture of skin, or the people who are working in that lab don't look like those people, you're not testing it on those people, like it doesn't matter if a brand wants to create better for women of color, let's say, as an example, if they're not partnering with people who have that same level of interest. So, it requires there being, more chemists, more testing and more involvement in the community, listening to what the needs are. It involves on every level, like even in deciding, a lot of times when a brand is deciding, okay, should I have this shade, they look at 10 other brands that they're competing with to see, well, do they have a shade like this and how well is it doing? And
Yeah,
so it's like a vicious cycle. Well, it didn't sell for that brand, I'm not creating it. And
right.
maybe that brand had the right shade, but they weren't marketing it to the people who really needed that shade. There's just so many levels. And so
Sure.
people are afraid to create something that's different, that there's not a track record for success,
Right.
because they're looking in the wrong places,
Yeah.
So I think it's so many things, but I
Yeah.
do feel optimistic that the industry is willing to a degree to make these changes. I think it's just a matter of time, and it's really more about the customers, the consumer, just saying, just supporting the people who support them, because sometimes that's the only way to send the message. It's like, you know what, I cannot support you because you're not really here for me, but when you are, maybe I'll be
Then
back. So yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, I'm very optimistic, and I do believe that there are a lot of brands that have great intention to do better servicing their customers. And there are some who really don't care, but that's okay. As long as customers continue to raise their voices and, support where they're being supported, I think that the shift will be gradual, but it will happen over time.
And I think you're so right. It really needs to start at that development stage. And I was just having a conversation about this with skincare too, and how skincare products are just, they're not tested on darker Fitzpatrick skin tones. And it's just the way it from beginning, it's the way it starts. And it really you need to sort of get to the root of that formulation place as well, which I think
Absolutely.
is totally right. Um, you're also a photographer, and you can see a lot of your work on your Instagram page, which is really fun. I suggest everyone who isn't following Danessa to go ahead and follow her. Do
So much.
you believe that expanding your boundaries creatively, being a makeup artist, being a photographer, do you think that makes you a more well-rounded professional? And what might your advice be to someone who's looking to do the same?
I think it absolutely does, because it forces you to look at things from another perspective.
Yeah,
And we know what happens when you see things from someone else's vantage point. Like there's all these epiphanies and this whole new level of awareness. I was so afraid of that camera, but I really started shooting because I wanted to make sure that I was the best makeup artist possible. So it was really just like for me to look at my own work. But when I started doing it, I was like, wow, I want to create this kind of effect on the skin. Why am I not seeing it? What and that really inspired all of the products that I have right now. Every product that I've made from 2015 to today was a result of me shooting pictures.
Yeah.
So it really opened me up creatively and just helped me find more like of that white space. Where can I create that's going to create better performance on camera? The technology is expanding all the time. So, how am I growing as an artist unless I'm putting myself in these different scenarios and new spaces to kind of think outside the box that I was in. So yes, it changed everything for me.
And it makes so much sense, as to why professionals love your products, because you've really looked at them through that photographic lens as well, which I think makes so much sense. For others out there who, maybe sort of in one lane sort of right now in their professional life, either a wardrobe stylist or a makeup artist, what might your advice to them be to sort of think outside those lanes?
Yeah, I mean, just to try something new, like even if you're a fashion stylist, like take a makeup class.
Yeah.
It's not even saying you have to do it. It just gives you a different level of understanding.
Yeah.
I know I learned so much just being on set with photographers, watching how they're adjusting the lights and why are you using that reflector thing,
Yeah.
and just, it made me a better artist. And,
Right.
and back then I wasn't even thinking about taking a photo. So I think there's just so much, we can take from, other artists from other genres, especially when it's within the industry. I learned so much from hairstylists all the time, and it makes me do better makeup because I'm like, if there's wet hair, how is my makeup going to last? And I think about how they develop the hairstyle and think about, how I can, better construct the makeup so the two things can live together. So I think it makes it more fun. Like I love doing makeup more now that I am a photographer. It just kind of reinvigorated my interest in, what I was doing. So it can only help.
And I think you're so right. Just the power of observing, the power of sort of being present and just soaking it all in is so powerful. It's so much a part of it. I think that's great advice. So talk to us a little bit about your latest passion project, which is Danessa Myricks University. Explain a little bit about what Danessa Myricks University is.
So it spawned from a few places. One, I remember when I got started doing makeup, there was no information available. Literally, you buy a book and then you figure it out, or you have to find somebody who is willing to mentor you.
Yeah.
And it really took a long time for me to establish myself and to learn, my way in the industry. So I talked to so many artists who were like me, who may be transitioning from like another industry, or maybe they live in a remote part of the world or the country, or where there's not a lot of access. And I feel their pain. Like if they just want to ask the question, if they only knew the answer to this question, if they only knew what product you were using. And I just wanted to facilitate that. I know, how much it helped me to have people along the way willing to mentor, to share, to show me things. And I just kind of wanted to pay it forward. And it was more than just, there's more than just beauty information that people are asking for, like how to put on a lipstick or an eyeliner. It's like business development. It's like, how to manage their clientele, how to start a brand, how to manage their social media, how do they market? It was like all of those things that are not readily available. And if you can find that information, it's not always streamlined to your area of focus in makeup. So I wanted this platform to be all of the things. You can have fun, exploring different techniques in makeup. And it's not just me, it's other people who I've come across within the industry who have incredible information they're teaching in the university too. And you can get information outside of just makeup, business, and all of the things. Yeah.
And are these sort of virtual workshops? Is that kind of how it works, Danessa?
Yeah, absolutely. Oftentimes they are happening live, or they may have been recorded previously. But a lot of it happens just like this, like through Zoom.
Yeah.
We have questions that come in ahead of time. We make sure all the questions are answered. It's easy, and we are also interpreting it in many languages as well. So right now the courses are in Spanish, but we're going to expand to French and Russian, just so like everybody can have a bit more access.
So you can get more information on Danessa Myricks University at your website, correct?
Yeah, as soon as you get to the homepage, Danessa Myricks Beauty, you'll see biggest day, Danessa Myricks University. Click there, and there's tons of free classes too. You don't have to necessarily be subscribed. You can enjoy just free content as well.
Where do you see Danessa Myricks University sort of going? What's the sort of ultimate sort of big picture goal for the university?
Well, it's twofold. Mentorship is a big part of like what I want to do. I have a program now called the Angels Program where I have about 100 artists that I spend time with, personally working with. And I want to expand that.
Yeah.
And I want it to be beyond just me, other people as well. And, really, I just want this information to get to more parts of the world. So that's why the languages are important. And, last year we traveled 300 out of 352 days. Like that's how many countries we went to. And I see what the need is. So I really want to reach out to as many of those people and give them access to the training that they've been searching for.
So were you doing in-person workshops and mentoring pre-COVID?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I was talking to you earlier. I'm very much an introvert. Like this is like the hardest thing that I do right now. But when it comes to teaching, it's like it kind of changes for me.
Yeah.
That exchange, the sharing, and just seeing how it changes people, it reinvigorates them and how they're thinking about their career and what their possibilities are. It really just gets my heart pumping. So I really enjoy doing that. And I love the travel and I love that connection in that way. And so I mentored people in multiple countries around the world. And when COVID struck, it was like, oh my, yeah, somebody ripped my heart out of my body.
Right.
But moving to virtual platforms like this, I was able to connect. And, I'm actually reaching more people in this way. So everything kind of happens, for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think is your secret to being a good educator, sharing your knowledge with the world? What do you think the key to that is?
I mean, it's really just about caring about the person on the other end and not holding back any secrets. Like just kind of just being open and giving it all and being honest too. It's not all da 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 happy sunshine. There's there's a lot that comes with
Sharing
working
hard
in this.
truths.
Yes, yeah, just kind of keeping it real because I really want to set them up for success. And I mean, I think that's really it. I really do want everyone to succeed. Because it's going to just build the industry as a whole. It kind of moves the entire industry forward. The more successful artists there are, the more people who can start a career midway through their life and be successful. It's just going to open up the possibilities for other people. So I think it's just an important part of what we all should do. Just share, communicate, and just elevate the industry as a whole.
And, you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur. I would imagine that it's a lot of what you do is trying to strike the balance between those two things, because I would imagine that occasionally they may be at odds with one another. How do you strike that balance between artistry and entrepreneurship?
It's really tricky. I'm going to be honest. And for me, the conversation I have to constantly have with myself is, it's important that you stay in business because you need to stay in business so that other people can see that it's possible. But it's also important to stay true to the DNA of like what you are trying to create. And so I found that I cannot do two things. I can't be creative and worried about, is this going to earn money? What's the bottom line? Is there payroll available? So I've learned that you have to ask for help and you have to stay focused on like what your role is. Like my role is to create amazing products, to keep developing, to keep sharing, to keep teaching. And I need to let the other people worry about, bottom line and all of those things. And I think, that makes it easier for me, just maintaining that separation. And it's oftentimes they don't agree with me, but I go with my gut. I'm a gut kind of girl. And if my gut tells me that this is something that needs to happen, we do it, we move forward. And I've been very successful just sticking to that formula. I just stay in creation mode. And as long as I'm focusing on creating from an authentic place, I think, you can't lose.
It's such good advice, because I think when you're passionate about something and when the business is your business, you want to try to do everything. And
Yeah.
that probably is the fatal flaw sometimes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. So I have learned to slow down and don't launch 20 products in a month, you know.
Right.
I'm getting better with that. You know, it's hard, you know, because it's just
Yeah.
what we do, right? This
Yeah,
is
totally. And when it's something you love, you can't help but
yeah.
just get so excited about the next thing. How do you're also, you have a family and you're a mother and a daughter. And how do you find balance there? Because I know as a single dad myself, it's hard. How do you find that balance?
It's very interesting. And I honestly don't think that you're ever like 100% balanced. You know,
Yeah.
your priorities are shifting, you know, from day to day
Yeah.
sometimes. I
Right.
just think it's just take a step back. And, you know, for me, one of the solutions I've had is to involve my children in what I do as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because when they have a better understanding of what I'm doing and what I'm looking to create, you know, they're more understanding of the time that they may not necessarily get. And, you know, sometimes they're like, please go, because, you know, they work with me to name products.
Right.
You know, their friends test the products. They come to me at the office. They come to the office and they're like, okay, you're good. You don't ever have to, like, you stay there. I'm staying home. You know, it's hard sometimes. I have to say, like, throughout my career, I've had to choose between, okay, am I going to be home for the graduation or for the prom? And those kinds of moments were, you know, they were hard. But I think communication was a big part of it, and talking to my children and just letting them decide. I'm like, you know, where do you want me to be? If you want me there, I'm there. And just kind of just, you know, staying connected that way and just making sure that everyone's feeling good.
Yeah.
You know, there are disappointments along the way, but I think as long as they know what the bigger idea of what I'm looking to create, you know, it kind of works itself out. Both of my children are very entrepreneurially driven.
Yeah.
My daughter's an artist and my son is like, I'm going to be the next Warren Buffett if it kills me. So, you know, it kind of rubbed off on them a little bit. And I think as they get older, they kind of appreciate they appreciate the passion
And the work. Yeah. And the work.
Yeah.
And, you know, you mentioned going with your gut and trusting your gut. You mentioned delegation and staying in your lane. What do you think are some other secrets to being a good entrepreneur for those who are sort of in the entrepreneurial mind?
Yeah, I think, well, two things. One, you have to step away from it in order to see it better and see it clearer. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned is like, I have to disconnect from it. You know, I think I'm most inspired when I'm doing things that have nothing to do with makeup or this business. You know, you get in that good feeling place and it really just helps you reevaluate things in a different way. You see things differently. You have to step away. You have to take that space. So that was one of the main lessons that I've learned. And then secondly, it honestly really is about resilience. You know, for many of us, for most of us, is going to be slow and steady wins the race. And I really try and share this with people, especially today, because there's so many instant millionaires, instant success stories, but those are like not the norm. For the most part, most people just have to not quit. That's it. Just don't quit and just wait for their moment and wait for their time. So, and that does require patience. It does require a passion and just belief, you know what I mean? But I think, you know, stepping away for a minute, evaluating, you know, and one of the big things the lessons that I learned also is that, you know, as entrepreneurs, we're always looking at what we don't have. I don't have enough money. There's not enough people looking at my products. I don't have enough followers. I don't have. And I really had to learn how to, you know, sit in a place where I'm writing down the things that I do have. Like, what are my strengths? What are the things that I do have? What are, you know, what all the good? Yeah. And in focusing in that place and kind of sitting in gratitude, it kind of opens you up to, you know, it kind of resets you. Like, actually, things aren't as bad as I think I am. Like, if I look back where I was a year ago, 3 years ago, even when I got started, I have so much appreciation for where I am now. And is it where I want to end up? Absolutely not. But I've done a lot, you know, there's been a lot of achievement. So I think taking the time to just celebrate yourself for whatever level of a success that you've had, you know, what are the good things, writing down, what do I have? You know, what are my talents? You know, where am I finding myself right now? Because that literally will springboard you to the next place. Lack of appreciation for where you are kind of sets you back. So I think, honoring the space that you're in and what you've done is the thing that's going to propel you forward.
And it's such good advice, because I think it's something that everyone can really relate to, especially now. We live in this social media world where professionally and personally, it's really easy to compare yourself to what everyone else is doing. And I think you're so right that focusing on your own journey is the key, isn't it? That's
yeah. A lot of times we're comparing where we are. We're comparing our start to someone else's middle or someone else's end.
Right.
We don't know where they are in their process or where they are in their journey, right? So yeah, the only just, focus on you.
You talked a second ago about inspiration. Where do you find inspiration that may be unrelated to makeup and photography and what you do? What are other places that you find inspiration?
So of late, I've been obsessed with podcasts and documentaries and hearing other people's stories and stories outside of my industry. It's interesting when you look at other people's journeys and what they've done, and what they had to do and experience to get to where they are. It really just shifts everything. So I love watching documentaries and hearing people's stories. That's a big part. I love art. I love nature. I just like to get outside and like smell the air, or go and immerse myself in a museum, which, we haven't been able to do as late. But I think anything that's outside, anything that puts you in a space of feeling good will ignite creativity in you. And it could be as simple as, a 15-minute meditation. It doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing, but, just getting outside of yourself in any kind of experience that makes you feel good just opens you up. So it could be a lot of things.
That's such great advice. And I think, sadly, we have room for one more question. I could probably talk to you for like another hour at least. So thank you again for your time, Danessa. We so appreciate
this was fun.
What's next? You've done so much already. What's next for Danessa Myricks?
I think for me right now, I'm focusing on just developing other entrepreneurs. I want other people to know that this is possible for them, and that this journey can be for them regardless of where they are in their lives, what age they are. So mentorship is just a big part of like how I'm moving forward. I'm 50, and I think about my father's journey. At 60, someone said to him, I'm going to help you, get started. I'm going to help you move forward as an entrepreneur. And that changed not just his life, but the history of my family.
Yeah.
And, I just want to do that for other people too. So I'm really just digging deep to find how many ways I can give. That's where I am right now.
Danessa, again, thank you so much for your time, your expertise, your words. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Remember, this session will be recorded. You can view it again on glamhive.com. Thank you
guys for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me.